The twin suns burned over a wasteland that had no mercy. The ground cracked like dry glass, and every gust of wind carried dust that stung the eyes like knives. In the middle of that endless desert, a beast dragged something behind it. A small shape wrapped in chains. The creature was huge, half flesh and half machine. Metal plates covered its back, and glowing wires ran through its body like veins of fire. Its claws dug deep into the sand as it pulled the prisoner behind. Every few steps the chains rattled and a weak cry echoed across the dunes. The one being dragged was a young alien girl, no older than 20 by human years. Her skin shimmered faintly silver under the harsh light, and her hair, once bright white, was now covered in dust. Around her neck and wrists were iron shackles connected to the beast's saddle. Her body was covered in bruises, but her eyes, glowing blue like frozen stars, still burned with defiance. Behind the beast rode 3 alien soldiers, tall and cruel, wearing black armor with sharp ridges. They laughed as the girl stumbled and fell again and again. One of them shouted, "Still alive?" "Maybe the desert wants you to suffer longer." Another replied, "She should have died 5 days ago. 10 days is too kind for a traitor." The beast growled as if agreeing. It yanked forward, dragging her face first through the sand. The soldiers didn't care. To them, she was no longer one of their kind. She was an example, a warning to others who dared to show mercy to humans. Far away on a rocky ridge above the dunes, a human scout watched through the scope of his visor. His name was Captain Rian Holt, a reconnaissance soldier from the Terran border fleet. His orders were simple: observe alien movements, avoid detection, and never interfere. But as he zoomed in on the scene below, something in him twisted. He saw the girl's face, bloodied, sunburned, but alive. He watched her lift her head and look toward the horizon as if searching for hope. Even from that distance, he could feel her pain. And yet, she didn't beg. She didn't scream. She just endured. Rian whispered under his breath, "What kind of punishment is this?" His drone recorded the scene, sending silent footage back to the fleet. But he couldn't look away. 10 days of being dragged? Who could survive that? The wind picked up, carrying the sound of chains. Rian adjusted his scope. The alien guards stopped near a ruined transport shell buried halfway in the sand. One soldier dismounted, poured water on the ground, and let it sink into the dust, right in front of the girl. Her cracked lips parted, but she said nothing. The soldier smirked. "Drink from the sand, traitor." Rian clenched his jaw. He had seen death, battlefields, and burned colonies. But this was cruelty without reason. He turned off his recorder. The mission could wait. Night came fast in the desert. The 2 suns fell below the horizon, and the cold crept in like a ghost. The alien soldiers built a fire beside the wreckage. They tied the beast to a broken pillar, leaving the girl chained behind it. She didn't move. Her breath was slow, shallow, but still there. Rian crawled down from his perch and moved closer, careful not to make a sound. The wind helped him, whispering through the dunes, covering his footsteps. Through his night vision lens, he saw the beast sleeping, steam rising from its metal parts. The soldiers were laughing around the fire, drinking from flasks, not caring about the prisoner who might die before morning. He stopped just 50 meters away, hidden behind a rock. His heartbeat matched the rhythm of the chains. Every instinct screamed, "Stay out of this." But then she lifted her head again. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, weak, but alive. She looked up at the stars as if speaking to them silently. Then, for the first time, she whispered something. Rian couldn't hear the words clearly, but his visor picked up the faintest vibration. "Please," she said, "don't let me die like this." That one sentence hit him harder than any bullet. He checked his rifle, fully charged. Checked his sidearm, ready. He was breaking every rule he had ever followed, but his hands moved on their own. He whispered to himself, "Just watch, Rian, don't interfere." But he couldn't. When dawn broke again, the suns rose red, painting the sky like blood. The beast woke with a roar, the soldiers mounted up, and the dragging began again. The girl stumbled, fell, and was pulled through the dust once more, but now, she wasn't alone. High above them, through a faint shimmer of heat, Rian's drone followed, silent as a shadow. The human had made his choice, he would follow them. He didn't know how or when or why, but something deep in his chest told him that the story of this girl was not going to end in the sand. And from that moment, The hunter became the witness, and the desert, once silent, began to whisper of fate. Captain Ryan Holt didn't sleep that night. The cold wind bit through his armor as he sat on the ridge, eyes fixed on the tiny lights far below. The alien campfire glowing like a wound in the darkness. He could have left. His orders were clear: observe, record, do not engage. But he couldn't forget that whisper he'd heard through the desert. Please, don't let me die like this. For 10 years, Ryan had followed orders. He had fought in battles that turned cities to ash, lost friends who never came home, and carried medals that meant nothing. But that one broken voice had pierced through every wall he'd built around his heart. He zoomed in again through his visor. The alien beast slept beside the prisoner, its breath forming clouds of vapor. The girl lay curled in the sand, chained by her wrists and neck. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the moonlight. She wasn't moving. Ryan's chest tightened. She's not dead, he muttered, trying to convince himself. She can't be. He replayed his mission log, but the commander's last words felt distant now. Avoid all alien engagement, Captain Holt. You're not here to save anyone. You're here to survive. He exhaled slowly. Survive. Maybe that word had lost its meaning a long time ago. The wind howled across the dunes. Somewhere the beast groaned in its sleep. The soldiers laughed in their language, harsh, cruel sounds that carried through the night. Ryan couldn't understand the words, but he didn't need to. He knew mockery when he heard it. He looked at the girl again. Her chest rose, barely. A small movement, but enough. Something in him shifted. That one breath was all it took. He packed his gear quietly, slung his rifle over his shoulder, and whispered to his drone, "Stay in orbit mode. If I don't come back in 2 hours, delete everything." Then he slid down the ridge. Every step sank deep into cold sand. The air shimmered with heat ghosts, even though the suns had long vanished. His boots made no sound. He moved like a shadow, careful, controlled, but his heart beat loud enough he feared it would wake the desert itself. As he approached, the beast stirred, one eye glowing red. Ryan froze, body tense. The creature sniffed the air, then lowered its head again. The guard, still half drunk, didn't notice anything. He reached the edge of the camp, 10 meters away now. The smell of burning metal mixed with sweat and dust. He crouched behind a wrecked panel, close enough to hear their voices. "She won't last till morning," one alien said, poking the fire with a blade. Another laughed. "Good. Saves us the trouble of killing her again." Ryan's grip tightened around his weapon. His mind screamed to wait, to think, but his body had already made the decision. He raised the rifle, exhaled, and fired. A silent flash of blue light cut through the dark. The first guard dropped instantly. The second turned, shouting something, then fell with a hole through his chest. The third reached for a weapon, but Ryan was faster. A burst of plasma hit the alien's shoulder, sending him crashing into the sand. The beast roared, thrashing against its chain. Sparks flew as metal scraped metal. Ryan rushed forward, eyes on the girl. She was still lying motionless, barely breathing. He knelt beside her, cutting through the chain with his plasma blade. The metal hissed and melted. She flinched as he touched her arm. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm not here to hurt you." Her voice was weak, almost gone. "Human?" "Yes," he said softly. "Human." Her eyelids fluttered. She stared at him. Confusion, fear, disbelief all mixing in her glowing eyes. "Why?" He paused. There was no right answer. "Because no one deserves this," he said finally. She tried to speak again, but fainted before finishing the word. Ryan looked around. The fire crackled quietly. The desert wind blew over the bodies, erasing their tracks. He lifted her gently, surprised at how light she felt, like holding something half made of air. As he carried her toward the dunes, the beast behind them gave a low growl. Ryan turned, staring at it. The creature's eyes burned like coals, but it didn't attack. It only watched as the human and the alien girl disappeared into the storm. By sunrise, the desert would bury every trace of what happened here. But in that moment, under the pale light of 2 rising suns, a forbidden story had begun. One act of mercy in a world built on hate. And Ryan Holt, the man who should have walked away, had just declared war on his own orders. The wind came alive before dawn. It began as a soft hum and grew into a screaming storm that swallowed the desert whole. Sand lifted like smoke, turning the horizon into a red-gold blur. The storm was coming, and with it Ryan's only chance. He moved fast, half dragging, half carrying the alien girl through the dunes. Her body was weak, barely responding, but she was breathing. Every few steps she coughed, whispering something in her native tongue that he couldn't understand. The translator in his visor cracked, picking up fragments. Pain. Water. Alive. Hold on, he murmured. We're almost there. He had found shelter inside the wreckage of an old cargo hauler half buried in the sand. Its hull was broken, but the inner chamber was enough to block the storm. He laid her gently inside and sealed the doorway with a broken panel. Outside, the desert screamed like a living thing. For a few moments, Ryan just sat there catching his breath. His heart hammered in his chest, adrenaline still burning through his veins. He looked down at her, skin pale, lips cracked, faint silver veins glowing under her skin. Her beauty was strange, otherworldly, yet fragile like glass. He cleaned her wounds with the little water he had left. She winced when the liquid touched her skin. Her eyes flickered open, glowing faintly blue. "Why did you come back?" she whispered. Ryan hesitated. "I couldn't leave you. You should have." Her voice trembled. "They will come. They always come." He didn't answer. He just reached for his communicator, trying to ping his drone. No response. The storm was jamming everything. He cursed softly under his breath. The sandstorm was both blessing and curse. It hid them, but it also trapped them. Hours passed. The roar outside grew louder. Lightning flashed within the storm, bright enough to paint her face in white light for a heartbeat. Every time thunder rolled, she flinched like a wounded animal. "Who are they?" Ryan asked quietly. "Why were you chained to that beast?" Her breathing slowed. "They called me a traitor. I was one of them once. A soldier. I disobeyed an order. I refused to kill humans. So they dragged me. 10 days. She looked away. It was their justice." Ryan felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "That's not justice," he said. "That's cruelty." She gave a bitter smile. "You humans speak of mercy, but I've seen your bombs." He nodded slowly. "You're right. We have our monsters too." Silence filled the wreck. Outside, the desert roared like a furnace. Inside, the two enemies, human and alien, shared a fragile stillness. Suddenly, a sharp beep echoed through Ryan's wristpad. His motion sensor lit up. Multiple life signs approaching fast. He moved to the window, peeking through a gap in the metal. Shapes were moving through the storm. Dark silhouettes riding on hover beasts, lights flickering on their armor. The alien soldiers had found their trail. "They're here," he muttered. The girl's eyes widened. "You can't fight them all." Ryan grabbed his rifle and checked the charge. "Maybe not," he said, "but I can make them regret finding us." The first explosion hit moments later, a blinding flash of plasma against the sand. The storm swallowed the sound, but the vibration shook the entire wreck. Ryan crouched beside the window, using the storm as cover. Through the haze, he saw one of the riders dismount, searching. Ryan waited until the soldier stepped closer, then fired. A clean shot. The alien fell instantly, vanishing into the sand. Two more followed, shouting into their comms. They fired blindly into the storm, bolts of red energy slicing the air. Ryan moved fast, shooting from different angles. Lightning and plasma lit the desert like a chaotic dance of fire. Inside, the girl covered her ears, whispering something like a prayer. When the dust settled, 3 bodies lay still. The last one tried to crawl away before Ryan's blade struck. Then, silence again. Only the storm's breath remained. Ryan leaned against the wall, panting. "It's over," he said, but the girl shook her head slowly. "No. Now they will send more." He looked at her, really looked, at the faint light in her eyes, at the strength still hidden behind exhaustion. "Then we'll move before they do," he said. He knelt beside her, his voice steady. "You said you spared humans once. Maybe it's time one of us returned the favor." She looked up at him, unsure, but something in her gaze softened. For the first time, she didn't see an enemy. She saw a man willing to fight the whole desert for her. Outside, the storm began to die. The sky turned from red to gold, and as dawn broke again over the wasteland, the human and the alien girl stepped out together. Hunted, broken, but alive. The war between their species still raged beyond the horizon. But here, in the heart of the storm, something stronger than war had quietly begun. Trust. The storm had passed, leaving silence behind, the kind of silence that pressed heavy on the heart. The dunes shimmered under pale sunlight, and the air smelled like burnt metal and rain. The wrecked cargo hauler stood half buried in the sand, a graveyard of broken steel. Inside it, two survivors breathed the same still air, a human and an alien girl once chained to death. Ryan sat beside a cracked panel, repairing his rifle with careful hands. His armor was scratched and his face was streaked with dust and sweat. The alien girl, whose name he still didn't know, rested on a pile of torn cloth. Her skin was no longer cold, but her strength had not yet returned. For hours neither spoke. The desert outside waited too, as if listening. Finally, she broke the silence. "You should have left me there." Ryan looked up. "I've heard that before," he said softly, "and I've never once agreed." Her eyes, faintly glowing blue, studied him. "You risked your life. For me? For what? I am your enemy." Ryan gave a tired half-smile. "If you were my enemy, you'd be dead by now." She blinked slowly. "You humans speak boldly, and you aliens chain people to monsters," he said, his tone calm but sharp. "Maybe we both need to unlearn something." For a moment, she said nothing. Then her gaze fell. "My name is Sierra," Ryan nodded. "Ryan Holt, Captain Terran Recon." Sierra repeated it quietly, as if testing the sound. "Ryan," she tilted her head slightly. "You shouldn't be here, Captain Holt. When they find you, and they will not kill you quickly." Ryan shrugged. "I've had worse threats from my own commanders." Her eyes flickered, a brief sign of curiosity. "You disobeyed them too?" "Not yet," he said. "But I'm close." Sierra looked away toward the small window slit where sunlight crept in. Her voice turned distant. "I was a commander once, for my people. I led troops against humans, thought we were monsters. Then one day I saw a human doctor save alien children from a burning ship. He didn't ask who they were. He just saved them. I hesitated that day, refused an order to kill him." Her hands trembled as she spoke. "They called it betrayal. They chained me to that beast to make me an example. 10 days of pain, 10 days to remember my mistake." Ryan's jaw tightened. "That wasn't a mistake. That was courage." She looked at him confused. "Courage?" "Yes," he said. "Doing what's right even when it gets you killed. That's courage." For a moment, something fragile passed between them, understanding perhaps, or the memory of what mercy looked like. Ryan reached into his bag and pulled out a small metal flask. "Here," he said, handing it to her. Sierra hesitated, then took a careful sip. Her throat moved as she swallowed, her expression softening. "Water?" she whispered, almost reverently. "Only have one bottle left," he said. "But I figured you've earned half." She stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, "You're strange for a soldier." He chuckled quietly. "That's what my unit used to say." As the suns dipped lower, shadows crawled inside the wreck. Ryan checked his scanner again. No life forms nearby. For now, they were safe. But safety was never meant to last. Outside, faint light shimmered on the horizon. Search drones moving in patterns. The aliens were tracking heat signatures across the desert. Ryan knew it was only a matter of time. He stood and began packing. "We move tonight," he said. Sierra tried to sit up, wincing in pain. "You can't carry me forever." "Then you'll have to walk," he said simply. "And I'll cover you." She looked at him, the corner of her lips twitching. "You humans never know when to give up." "True," Ryan said, adjusting his gear. "That's why we survive." They stepped out as the second sun sank behind the dunes. The air was cooler now, the sky a deep purple scattered with stars. As they walked, Sierra glanced sideways at him. "Ryan, if we survive this, what will you tell your people?" He thought for a moment. "That I met someone who proved we're not so different." She didn't reply, but her expression softened, a quiet flicker of warmth beneath the scars. Behind them, the wind erased their footprints, but the memory of that night would stay forever. A soldier and a prisoner walking together through the ruins of hate. For 10 days, Sierra had been dragged through the sand as a warning. Now she walked by her own choice, beside the only human who ever defied an order for her sake, and for the first time in years, she dared to believe that maybe mercy could still change the stars. The night was quiet, but Ryan knew peace never lasted long in the desert. The stars shimmered faintly above, reflected in the endless dunes like silver dust. He and Sira moved carefully, guided by the faint blue light of the moons. The wind had calmed, but every shadow still looked like danger waiting to breathe. Sira walked beside him, her chains now gone, her steps slow but determined. Her skin, once pale from exhaustion, glowed softly again beneath the alien sky. Ryan carried most of the supplies, his rifle ready, eyes scanning the horizon every few seconds. They hadn't spoken much since leaving the wreck. There were no more words left that could change what was coming. Both of them knew the truth. The storm might have hidden them for a while, but the hunters would not stop until one of them was dead. By dawn, the desert began to shimmer with heat again. They found shelter beneath a collapsed rock arch, half buried in sand. Ryan checked the scanner on his wrist, faint signals far but moving closer. "They're tracking us," he muttered. Sira didn't look surprised. "They have blood scent technology. They'll find me soon." He looked at her, his jaw tight. "Then we'll give them something else to find first." Her eyes flickered with worry. "You plan to fight?" "Only if they make me." He gave a small, dry smile. "Which they will." Sira looked away. "You can't win against them alone." "I won't be alone," he said quietly. She met his gaze, realizing what he meant. She had once fought humans on the battlefield. Now she was about to fight beside one. The first drones appeared before sunset. Small, dark, and fast, and like metallic insects. They scanned the ground with red beams humming in the still air. Ryan crouched behind a boulder, motioning for Sira to stay low. He aimed carefully and fired. The drone burst in a flash of blue light, falling like burning glass. 2 more came instantly. Ryan shot again, missing one. The second drone fired back, a burst of plasma that scorched the sand near Sira's feet. She rolled aside, grabbing a fragment of metal from the ground. With one quick throw, she struck the drone's power cell. It exploded in the air. Ryan looked at her, surprised. She smirked faintly. "You humans don't get all the glory." He grinned. "Noted." But the moment of victory didn't last. In the distance, engines roared, deeper, heavier. A troop carrier was cutting across the dunes, leaving a storm of dust behind it. Red lights blinked on its side, alien markings glowing like fire. "They sent the elite guard," Sira said softly. Her voice held something close to fear. "They never stop until the target is destroyed." Ryan tightened his grip on the rifle. "Then we'll stop them first." He handed her a small pulse grenade. "When they get close, throw this and run. I'm not leaving you." "Yes, you are," he said. "I'll hold them off." Her glowing eyes searched his face. "You'll die," he smiled, tired, honest. "Then I'll die doing something right." The carrier came within range. The air shimmered with heat and tension. As the ramp dropped, armored soldiers poured out, black helmets reflecting the twin suns. Their leader shouted an order, pointing toward the rock arch. Ryan opened fire. The first shot dropped 2 of them instantly. Plasma bolts filled the air, painting the desert with streaks of light. Sira hurled the grenade. The explosion shook the ground, throwing sand and bodies into the sky. Through the chaos, she saw Ryan take a hit, a bolt striking his shoulder. He stumbled but kept firing. Another shot grazed his leg. He fell to one knee but refused to stop. Sira screamed his name, running toward him. He waved her back, shouting, "Go!" She ignored him. She picked up a fallen weapon and fired, her aim deadly, precise. The guards fell one after another. The air stank of ozone and blood. When it was over, only the desert wind moved. The carrier burned behind them, smoke rising into the blue. Sira dropped beside Ryan, pressing her hands over his wound. "Stay still," she said, her voice breaking. He coughed weakly. "Told you. I wasn't alone." Tears slipped down her dust-covered cheeks. "You're a fool, human." "Maybe," he whispered, "but I saved the right fool." She laughed softly through the tears. Around them, the desert glowed red under the fading suns. The hunters were dead, but more would come. Still, for the first time since her capture, Sira felt something stronger than fear. Hope. She had once been chained for saving humans. Now she had fought to save one, and as the stars began to rise, the desert of chains became at last the desert of freedom. The night was quiet again, but this time the silence carried weight. Smoke from the wrecked carrier drifted into the dark sky, glowing faintly under the twin moons. The desert wind had grown soft, gentle, almost kind, as if the world itself had paused to watch the 2 survivors who had refused to die. Ryan lay on the ground beneath the rock arch, his armor scorched, his shoulder bleeding through the bandage Sira had wrapped with trembling hands. His breaths came heavy but steady. Nearby, the sand shimmered with the light of burning metal. Sira sat close, her eyes reflecting the firelight, that same cold blue glow now warm with worry. She pressed her palms together, whispering words from her people's language. Not a prayer for herself, but for him. "Don't waste breath on me," Ryan muttered, opening one eye. "I'm too stubborn to die." She managed a small laugh. "You are, but the wound is deep. Pain means I'm alive," he said. "And as long as I'm alive, we move." But Sira shook her head. "You can't move like this. They'll track the energy from your weapon fire. More troops will come." Ryan tried to sit up, grimacing as pain flared across his shoulder. "Then we keep going before they do." She caught his arm, forcing him to stay still. "No, Ryan, listen." Her voice was low but firm. "If they find us again, they'll kill you and not capture, kill. You have to cross the border. Your people's patrols are close. Go back." He looked at her, dusty, scarred, and still defiant. "And leave you here alone?" "I can't go with you," she said, her tone soft but certain. "If your soldiers see me, they'll execute me. I'm still the enemy to them." "Then I'll tell them the truth," Ryan said quickly. "That you saved me." Sira smiled sadly. "You think that will matter?" "To them, mercy is weakness, and same as it was for my kind." He stared at the sand, silent. Her words stung because they were true. The first rays of dawn began to creep across the dunes, painting everything in shades of gold and crimson. The light touched her face, making her look almost human, fragile and fierce at the same time. Ryan exhaled slowly. "You gave me 10 days of my life back. I won't let it end like this." She touched his hand lightly. "And you gave me something I thought I'd lost, a choice." He frowned. "Choice?" Sira nodded. "For 10 days I was dragged like an animal. I had no will, no voice, but you let me walk beside you. You saw me, Ryan. Not as a weapon, not as a traitor, as someone worth saving. That's why you have to go. You still have a world that listens to you. I don't." He looked at her, torn between duty and heart. "You think I can just walk away now?" "Yes," she said softly. "Because you're human. And that's what makes you different. You can choose compassion even when it hurts." For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind picked up, blowing fine grains of sand around them. The sound was almost like whispers. Then in the distance, Ryan's scanner beeped faintly, a signal. He pulled up the display. Human patrol at less than 10 kilometers away. They were close. Sira saw it too. "Go," she whispered. He shook his head. "Not without you. Please," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't make my life cost yours." Ryan hesitated, then slowly stood, pain shooting through his leg. He stared toward the horizon where the signal blinked. His chance for rescue. His command would want answers, but answers meant betraying her. He turned back to her. "If I go, I won't tell them anything." "Not about you?" Sira's eyes filled with tears that shimmered under the rising sun. "Then I'll know you truly meant what you said. That mercy isn't weakness." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his dog tag, placing it in her hand. "If you ever meet a human who remembers this name, tell them I made my own orders." She looked at the metal tag, her fingers shaking. "Ryan!" Before she could say more, the sound of engines echoed from the distance and the patrol was closing in. Ryan turned and began limping toward the hills, his figure cutting against the bright horizon. Sira watched until he disappeared behind the dunes. Her heart felt heavy, yet strangely full. The desert was silent again. Only the wind carried his last words, echoing faintly through the golden air. Doing what's right is never the easy road. But it's still the right one. She closed her hand around his tag and whispered, "Then I'll walk that road too." As the twin suns rose high, Sira turned away from the burning wrecks and began walking in the opposite direction, toward the unknown, toward freedom. The war would still rage, the hunters would still come, but something had changed. For the first time, an alien and a human had both chosen mercy over fear. And somewhere beyond the dunes, two worlds had just taken their first step toward forgiveness. The desert was quiet again. The battle was over, the hunters gone, and the twin suns climbed above the horizon like two silent witnesses. All that remained was heat, silence, and a trail of fading footprints, one pair human, one alien, that ended where the dunes met the sky. Sira walked alone now. The human was gone. He had walked toward his people, limping through the golden light until the desert swallowed him. She had watched until he vanished, and even after, her eyes stayed fixed on the place where he had stood. The dog tag he'd given her hung around her neck, cool metal against warm skin. It swung gently as she walked, catching the sunlight with every step. On it, one name was carved, Ryan Holt. She repeated it softly, as if afraid the desert would forget. For days, she wandered north. Her wounds began to close, her strength returned little by little, but her heart carried a new weight, not of pain, but of meaning. Every grain of sand reminded her of the chains that once bound her, and every gust of wind reminded her of the human who broke them. She no longer walked as a prisoner. She walked as someone who had been seen. On the 5th day, she found the wreck of a drone half buried in sand, human-made, broken, but its beacon still pulsed weakly. She crouched beside it, studying the signal. Her people would trace her through any tech she touched, but the humans could find it too. She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the beacon. One choice could change everything again. If she turned it on fully, the humans might come. If she left it, the desert would take her forever. Then she remembered Ryan's words. Doing what's right is never easy, but it's still right. She pressed the switch. A blue flare burst into the sky, rising like a single spark of hope. By nightfall, the storm began again. Soft at first, then stronger. The dunes shifted and moaned. Sierra found a cave near a canyon and sheltered inside. Lightning flashed far away, lighting up the sky in pale white veins. She wrapped her arms around her knees and watched the storm dance. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of the thunder. In the morning, a sound woke her. Engines. She stepped out carefully and saw them. Human ships descending through the dust, silver and white against the red sky. She froze. Part of her wanted to run, part of her wanted to be found. The ships landed with a hiss. Human soldiers spread out cautiously, scanning the area. One of them shouted, "Over here!" Sierra raised her hand slowly, stepping forward. The soldiers aimed their weapons, uncertain. Then one of them saw the tag around her neck. "Wait," he said, lowering his gun. "That's Holt's ID, Captain Ryan Holt." Sierra stopped. He saved me." The soldier's eyes widened. He spoke quietly into his comms, and moments later a higher officer stepped out, face hard, voice stern. "Where is he?" Sierra hesitated. "Gone. He crossed the dunes." "He was hurt." The officer exchanged a look with his team. "We found a crash beacon from his armor." "He didn't make it." The words struck like a blade. Sierra didn't cry. She just stood there, the desert wind pulling at her silver hair. The dog tag felt heavier now. The officer's tone softened. "If he saved you, then he did what he always did. Disobeyed orders for the right reason." He nodded toward her. "You'll come with us. You're safe now." "Safe," she whispered, tasting the word. It felt strange on her tongue, fragile, new, precious. They led her to the ship. As she stepped inside, she looked back one last time at the desert, that endless sea of pain and redemption. Somewhere under those sands, his footprint still slept. Before the door closed, she whispered softly, "You didn't die for nothing, Ryan." The engines roared, lifting them into the sky. The desert shrank below until it was only gold and shadow. Later, when the humans asked her name for their records, she paused before answering. "Sierra Holt," she said quietly. "He gave me my life. I give him my name." The officer nodded in silence. As the ship carried her beyond the horizon, she pressed the dog tag to her heart and closed her eyes. For the first time since her punishment began, she felt something pure. Not victory, not vengeance, but peace, and far below, the desert kept her secret, whispering through the wind, that once, in a world of war and hatred, an alien girl and a human soldier had defied everything to prove that mercy still lived among the stars.